Alright, my name is Tremblay, and I'm going to be focusing on the legislative term limits. This is also what I did for the class discussion, so I do feel it is really important to focus on. Alright, so what are some pros? This means that you would be supporting term limits. So 87% of Americans support term limits, which obviously would be for a reason. So one of the reasons is that when politicians have an unlimited time in office, it is proven that they often spend more time raising money for re-election rather than focusing on the issues, which I guess you could also say that means they're more focused on keeping the job than actually doing the job. And another reason is that more than 90% of the elections are non-competitive, and instead of paying attention to the new ideas and perspectives, Americans are often focusing on the presidential election. They think that's more important, but they just vote for the same people instead of giving other people a chance or even listening to them. So if you bring in term limits, people who have been in office for a while with no competition can be removed, new ideas can be brought in. Yeah. Alright, so now for some cons. That this would mean you're against term limits, meaning that there would be none. So with little experience in Congress, you are constantly being removing people with experience. New ideas are being brought in, new perspectives, but people who have been in politics for a while and learned how things go, learn what works, what doesn't work, are just being removed. So there's no training program, so you're cutting people out when they're just learning how to do the job. This means that once people figure out how things go, again, what works, what doesn't work, what flies, just get in the groove of things, they're just being removed and then replaced, and then the next person is going to do the exact same thing, so it doesn't really work. New electives, new people coming in, again, means new perspectives, new ideas can be introduced, new ways to tackle problems, tackle issues, so that would be very beneficial. So another thing is that it could be a problem with the Constitution. A ruling in the Supreme Court in 1995 pretty much that stated that this very well could be unconstitutional, so they would have to go through a constitutional amendment, which is quite a long and difficult process. It is not a fun one to go through. You'd have to schedule dates way in advance, you'd have to figure things out, sort things out. It would just take a while in general. Alright, so the current state of term limits. So there's no term limits for the legislative branch at the moment, but there are elections. So for the Senate, it is every 6 years, and for the House of Representatives, it is every 2 years. People who are elected can stay in their state as long as they're elected, which also brings back to the point where people are more focused on getting re-elected than actually doing their job, and also the fact that people will stick with who they've always voted for I mean, if they can, really, the rest of their life, or the majority of it, because they just don't want to try new things. They don't even, some people just don't even focus on the legislative branch in general. Why is this important? So people underestimate the importance of the legislative branch. There is obviously the terms checks and balances for a reason. No branch is more powerful than the other. But people tend to only focus on the presidential election. People don't even vote for the legislative branch sometimes, which is crazy. And again, people will vote for who they always have, and then only focus on who they should vote for the presidential election, because they believe, since it's not a higher power but more labeled, I guess you could say, they just focus on that. Alright, so a possible solution. So there's no real perfect solution. There's a debate for everything. There's pros and cons to everything. You're not going to make a perfect solution. But one thing you could do is not only adding in term limits, but also changing the time between elections, and whichever one, and making the term limits more than 2 terms. So this could eliminate the problem, as discussed earlier, of people being removed when they find the groove of things, right when they're starting to figure things out. So it kind of brings in a mixture of bringing in new ideas and also having experience, so people can people of all experience can work together and create what could possibly be about as close as perfect as you can be.